Hi, I'm Megan Atuvle, and I've been making interactive floor and wall experiences for over 20 years. Today I'm going to show you how to make this super cool summer camp app. Basically, it has a little message that disappears when you move, and cute little camp icons show up. And the background is animated. All of this was made with stock. I'll link to the stock files. They came from my preferred stock site, 123rf.com. And they're all vectors, so it's very easy to work with them. If you'd like a tutorial about how I use After Effects to animate my backgrounds, please let me know. And if you do use this effect, there is audio. I'm not including the audio in this video because having that music playing in the background while I'm trying to explain how I'm building stuff is a little distracting. But if you are interested in knowing who the artist is who's playing the song that is in this app, it is listed on our website. And I would really love to hear your thoughts about having just background music in apps. So please leave a comment if you try this app, or if you have any questions about how to make interactive floor and wall experiences. So before I make an app in Motion Maker, I have to prepare all of the assets in Photoshop. And you can do this in any graphic design program. I just like to use Photoshop because I'm familiar with it. The way that I prepared my graphics was according to where they're going to be used in the application itself. So this is my idle image, and this will disappear when motion is detected. The next layer is a group of all of the different particles that show up when movement is detected. And to prepare these particles, what I do is I export them. I do quick export to PNG, so I have the transparency background. And then I resize the canvas to 200 by 200 pixels for each one of them, so they're all exactly the same size image. If you don't do that, then LUMOplay will try to resize the smaller images to match the largest, and you'll get pixelated images. So it's really important that for the Grow and Fall template, all of your particles are exported to an image that is the same size, even if the graphic itself varies in size. The next layer is this beautiful floating island, and this island has a bunch of different layers, and these were imported as a composition into After Effects so I could animate them subtly, so the trees kind of move and the clouds are deformed and the sun rotates. And then the very, very last layer in this working file is the background image. And I'm just using this as a reference. The background image was also animated in After Effects, and because I rotated it, it needed to be bigger than the canvas. The last thing I want to say about preparing your images for Motion Maker is you want to design everything to the final size of your installation display. All of my installation displays are 1920 by 1080, and so that's the size of my canvas, and it gives me exactly what I want. That way none of my images are pixelated and everything is the right size for the final display. If you don't do this, if you design at 4K and your system is actually 1080p, or you're designing something in landscape mode and your final display is a portrait mode display, then your final installation is going to look weird. So definitely when you're preparing your images, prepare a working file like this and make sure that all of the graphics that you're using are the right size for the final display. Now I'm going to take you over to my LUMOplay computer and show you how you import all of these assets once they're completed into LUMOplay. Now that all of my images and my video are made and exported, I will be able to make my app. So I'm going to go to Motion Maker after opening LUMO, and you'll notice that I'm using LUMOplay Maker, which allows me to publish as many Motion Maker apps as I want to without an additional fee. If you're using LUMO Playground, you'll need to pay a fee. I'm going to click Create next to Grow and Fall, and it will open up my editing panel. And the first thing I do is name my app. I'm going to call it Summer Camp. You don't need to click save as you go because your changes will be saved as you make them, but it's nice to be sure. So if you want to click save, you can, and you should definitely click save if the save button isn't grayed out, because that means there are some unsaved changes. I'm going to go into overlays first, and I don't want to add a logo, but I do want to add an idle image. And again, this is an image that shows up on top of your experience and kind of animates and will disappear when movement is detected. So it's really good to use as a call to action if you want to put in a message that says, you know, touch to play or move to play or step on the floor. This is where you would put that. So I'm going to go into my folder, and this is where I keep all my assets. And you may find it interesting to see how I organize my assets. I have the audio, the particles, and the video assets all separate, and then the idle image is in the top level of the folder, so it's easy to find. I'm going to click that, and you'll notice that it's sort of semi-transparent, so I don't want that. I'm going to turn the alpha all the way up, and then I'm going to collapse this section. Oh, actually, before I collapse this section, another thing that happens is there is a timeout for these idles. So if you don't want the idle image to show up right away once movement has stopped, if you want it to vanish for a bit longer, you can turn this time up. And I like to do that for my effects because I think it looks weird when it flashes in and out. So I'm also going to turn the timeout up a little bit. Now that I'm done with the overlays, I can collapse them and open up the background, and this is really simple. All I'm going to do is select the background video that I made, and that will import. And I do have audio in this background video. I can turn it on for maybe just a second. It reminded me of campfires. So I'm not going to leave that on, obviously, while I'm doing the tutorial, but there is audio in the effect, and if you wanted to have ambient audio, adding it to a video background is the best way to do it. And then the last step really is just adding all of the particles. So I'm going to go into my particles folder, select every single one of these, click open, and then it's going to add them in. Now these appear pretty dense, so I don't want that many of them. I'm going to turn the amount spawned down almost as far as I can, just so that it's not quite as much. And something to note is in this preview application, the mouse is not going to behave exactly the same way as motion does. So keep that in mind. Make sure that as you're building your apps, you're testing them in your final display. You can do that by just plugging your projector directly into your design machine and plugging in a 3D camera that's supported by LUMOplay and just testing out the final installation before you publish it. I also want to turn the grow time down so that they pop up a little faster. That's nice. I don't really mind the stay time, but you'll notice they're falling down, and what I really want is for them to go up. So I can just change that by just turning this fall speed down. And eventually you'll get to a point where they go up instead of down. And I don't want them to go up that high or that fast, so I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle so they just kind of go up a little bit as they're disappearing. I'm pretty happy with the rotation speed, but again, you can adjust this as you want to. So if you don't want them to rotate very fast, you can turn it all the way down. If you don't mind having them rotate quickly, you can leave it up. You can also vary the rotation speeds, and this rotation speed slider will change the direction of the rotation as well. So if I go to this side, it's going to rotate in the opposite direction, and if I go to the other side, it'll change direction. You can also change the axis on which it's rotating, and for this effect it's 2D, so I only want it to rotate in 2D. But if you wanted to make a really cool effect where these particles are, you know, semi-transparent shapes, you can create some really interesting effects by having those PNGs rotate across all the axes. So that's something to keep in mind when you're building a grow and fall effect. There's a lot of experimentation that you can do to get some really cool results. So I'm done with my particles. And the last sort of little thing that you can change is the idle animation. You'll see that these particles continue to appear even when nothing is happening. You can affect the spawn speed of these, so if you don't want them to show up quite as often, you can turn that way up and they will only show up once in a blue moon. I like to find sort of a middle ground, so there's kind of one particle on the screen at any given time. You can also turn this on and off, and again, this also has a timeout, so this will only start after a certain period of inactivity. So if you turn that up a bit, these particles are not going to appear for a little while after motion has been detected. So I'm actually going to set that a little higher. There we go. So now I'm going to save my app, close this, and it will show up in my drafts. If you want to continue editing your experience, then don't publish it until you're ready, because once it's published, you can't edit it anymore. So definitely make sure that you're testing these things before you publish them. I am not going to publish my app today because I've already made a version of this, but if you click this publish button, it'll give you a warning letting you know that you can't edit your app once it's published, and it won't publish it unless you press this check. If you have LUMO Playground, this stage will ask you if you're ready to pay for your app, and you'll have to put through a payment before you can publish your app. And the payment price is listed on the Motion Maker page on LUMOplay.com. So if you're curious about what our publishing fees currently are, that's where you would find out. So yeah, I have already made a version of this. I can find it in my app library. So if I go in here and I type in the name of the app, which is Summer Camp, I can download it. Because it has a 3-minute long background video, it may take a little bit of time to download, and that's something to keep in mind as well if you're making apps for clients. The bigger the app, the longer it's going to take to download. Generally, it won't take too long. If you do make a video or an asset that you try to upload to Motion Maker and it's way too big, our system simply won't let you publish the app. So if that happens to you, double check the sizes of your assets. Once the app is downloaded, you can open it and it'll launch on your LUMOplay display. So there it is. Now let's go test this out on a few more of my screens. If you're wondering about the super cute shirt that I've been wearing for this tutorial, I got it from the merch shop run by Lightware Labs, and it says, "Lumens are my love language." If you want this shirt, I'm going to put a link in the description because I think it's amazing and adorable. Huge thanks to Lightware Labs for making this awesome swag.